Welcome Libra to your in-depth monthly forecast for April 2025. It's a pleasure to work with you. If you'd like to work with me directly, please check out my testimonials below for my one-to-one consultations. You can also have a video reading with me too, please see below, or please take advantage of my unique special offer. My combination reports of your life roadmap and also your 12-month transits give you an opportunity to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but also get a much more intimate understanding of them, but how you can work with these in terms of the upcoming months, the next year, in order to time your moves really succinctly, when to hold off and when to go for it. And there is 30% off. Please see the link below for more. The month begins with the sun in your sector of relating, but it's also where Chiron is, the so-called wounded healer. If something hasn't been working very well, it may come up around a relationship context this month, because first of all, from the 9th to the 16th, with the sun applying to Chiron. But also the solar eclipse, which occurred at the end of last month, was augmented by Neptune returning to Aries, your sector of relating, for the first time in 163 years. So relationships are going to be something that are to the fore, but I must stress there's lots of different types of relationships. And because your ruler Venus is in retrograde at the start of this month, along with Mercury, the planet of communication, the relationships you might be talking about initially this month could be those at work, or practical discussions, or even talking about who contributes what on the domestic scene in terms of the chores at home. The 6th house is where we're obligated. But stern, cool Saturn is going to impact on your ruler exactly in a conjunction on the 7th and the 25th, and more broadly for the whole of April. So as much as that solar eclipse, Neptune, the sun, and the sun's glorious link to Chiron from the 9th to the 16th, but also a very uplifting, energetic angle to Jupiter through the first 10 days, is all good news. It's the details that are going to be the key. And those details may be where there are some sticking points. Because you may believe that in the past, your generosity of spirit, your openness to achieve some kind of consensus, has in some ways not been honoured by another party. It may have been an old relationship, it could have been within the family, friendships, maybe professionally. So what you've learned from that is that you want to set your stance around how you connect to people in a more robust way. And at the start of this month, Mars, the planet of assertion, is in a very visible part of your chart, and it could bring out within you a much greater desire to really get what you need, to be more in touch with your goals and ambitions around relationships. So if the details aren't quite aligning, so for example at work, if there's someone who's rather overly picky or micromanages, critical, that could be quite a red flag to you, despite that solar eclipse energy, the sun linking to Chiron. So as much as we can have the dialogue, the 7th house is great for listening, but it's also great for setting our stall out and setting our boundary, because in traditional astrology, it's open enemies. So that could be an area, particularly with Mercury going direct on the 7th, but returning to Aries on the 16th, coming out of shadow on the 26th, Venus going direct on the 13th, but returning to Aries by the end of the month. You could get to where you want to be by the end of the month, but I feel there's going to be the potential for some drama along the way, and Mars is going to be at the heart of the action. Because Libra, as much as having Venus and Mercury retrograde could see you thinking about or rediscussing something, looking for a new job, There may be some kind of back to the future element at the start of this month. Getting down into the detail of whatever it is going to be critical, which brings us to the full moon of the 13th, because it's in your sign. And if you don't feel heard and you don't feel appreciated or respected, your response over the following 2 weeks, despite the fact that your ruler goes direct on the 13th, can be very powerful indeed, because Mars in Cancer T-squares that full moon. So it can be a turbulent full moon, because that Aries energy is very much about you attuning, leaning into what others want, but the moon energy is reminding you about understanding what's right for you. And the Saturn-Venus energy asks you not to forget about the details which are important. So in other words, don't give away your power too easily. But on the 18th, Mars moves back into a part of your chart which can be very social. It's going to be here through to the middle of June. And as time goes on, that can bring some blessings, but it's unlikely to do that straight away. Mars is one of the 2 malefics. The other is Saturn. So Saturn's the greater malefic, is potentially oppressing your ruler Venus this month. It is forging a very fine link with Uranus. So if you can analyse your finances in a very detailed way, but be open to some fresh approaches, some good news financially or business-wise could develop this month. But Mars moving into your 11th house can make you quite idealistic. In terms of Mars's energy, where it requires a lot of attention, but it's also about action and impatience, the 11th house is actually a good place for Mars to be, because it makes us more conscious of what other people need. It's just as Mars returns to Leo, it's directly opposite Pluto in your sister air sign of Aquarius. That 11th, 5th house energy is about trying to balance your time, but cutting through them is the Sun, which moves into Taurus on the 19th. And however much dialogue there is early in the month with that 7th house energy, once the Sun gets to the 8th house, it's either all in or it can be all out. So just be conscious of that. These are very powerful influences. This is probably one of the most complex months for many a moon. It really is quite stunning, because Mars opposite Pluto can be about desire central. For example, if there is someone that you find almost irresistible, the relating side of your nature could make way for the need to do something more impulsively, particularly with the Sun in the 8th house, which can be about sex, intimacy, money. So the power that you're going to be generating, particularly as we go into the second half of this month, Mercury has returned to Aries, so that's helping the flow of communication going backwards and forwards. But on the new moon of the 27th, Mars is still having a huge impact. That new moon ordinarily would be great to think about long-term finance, investment, entrepreneurship, things like shares, pensions, inheritances, that kind of stuff. But it can also be where we do want to feel a matched commitment to where we're most devoted. And if you feel that someone just isn't sharing or investing in a situation as you really want, you could break out and do what you feel you need to do for you, because Mars in the 11th house, and particularly in the proud sign of Leo, is really about going for the future that we really want. So you could find yourself very uncompromising by the end of this month, and yet on the 30th, Venus returns back to Aries. Something that has been discussed could reach some kind of closure point in a positive way. So some of these energies may play out in terms of your work because of the 6th house activity of the node, Saturn, Venus and Mercury. Could play out in terms of relationships at work, could play out in terms of personal relationship, what happens at home. It could play out in terms of how you marshal your resources. Just depends on your unique situation. There definitely are opportunities, Libra, and particularly over the next 6 months. What Neptune's saying to you is it's good to be idealistic, but it's not good to deceive ourselves of what's truly possible or what truly works for us. I think Neptune has had quite a draining impact on your health recently. I feel that the demands of other people and expectations has probably left you feeling quite leaden and exhausted. So setting your boundaries on that seventh house is a smart thing to do. It doesn't mean to say that you're going to be a people pleaser. It means that you're going to let people know what you're pleased to do, but what you're not inclined to do, but do it firmly. But because of the role of Mars, I think there are going to be some combustible moments this month, even though for you, you generally like to keep some equilibrium. And because Saturn is on your ruler for the whole of the month, there could be some very cool, even sour moments around certain exchanges, I feel. Have a great month, Libra. If you've yet to check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com, it's got so many extra goodies now. Please come and join me and take advantage of all the new content.